Hi.
Welcome to Journal Chat. Can you give us just a 1 minute introduction to each of yourself? Ondine, tell us about where you've come from, what you're doing now.
Sure. I'm from primary backgrounds. I've taught in Catholic and independent schools, and I'm interested in lifelong learning for all learners, and currently employed at Monash Uni working with pre-service teachers.
And Vicky?
And I'm Vicky Donlan. I've taught in Catholic schools in Melbourne, and then a few years ago I went to the UK to teach for a few years, where I was introduced to the great power in feedback, and where it sort of ignited a bit of a passion for it for me.
Fantastic. What were you trying to achieve with the article?
Sure. I think we both were inspired by our students' ability to give feedback in our classroom contexts, and we're really interested in sharing that with others so that they could see also the value of not just teacher to student feedback, but student to student feedback as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was coming in and seeing, we mentioned a few examples in the article of where the children have sought out feedback themselves, and that was really exciting to see, and I think that was what kind of sparked it off, just how well these kids were doing this, is how good the results were, I guess.
So what difference did you notice in the classroom once you introduced this concept of feedback?
I think one of the main things was how the language was embedded in their everyday practice. So feedback wasn't just at the end of a process, it happened throughout, and it often happened just out of the blue. So it wasn't always planned, it sometimes just happened in a varied context.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you said it all, really.
So in the article you mentioned Carol Dweck, and you talk about fixed and growth mindsets, but I know you didn't have enough time to explore that in detail. So can you give us, for those who don't know Carol Dweck's work, a bit of a summary of her work and growth and fixed mindsets?
So my understanding of Dweck's theory of mindset is that you're not just one of two, however you may be fixed or growth mindset at different times in your life. I found a lot of the kids in my classroom would often state things like, I'm not good at maths, or I can't run as well as the next person. And that can often be construed as having a fixed mindset, that they wouldn't have anywhere to go. I think that's where Dweck brings into the conversation about that sometimes, yes, you might not be as good as the next person, but if you keep working at it, you can be better than you were before at whatever you're trying to do.
One example I have from a previous school was a little girl who came to our school in grade 3 and was found one day she had to be dealt with by the principal because she was in such a distressed state, crying and crying and crying because she'd got something wrong in maths, and her big kind of sticking point was, but I'm a maths superstar. I've been told that I'm a maths superstar, so I don't get things wrong. And that was so stressful to her because she had this fixed mindset where I'm good at maths, I get things right, and so she couldn't handle a setback. And so my understanding of Dweck's work is really that we don't want to get into that, this is me, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, that we always have room for growth as learners, everybody.
I think we as teachers have a role to play in that. Our language of feedback needs to be that of praising the effort that they're putting in and not the intelligence. And by that, we've stated in the article that just to say something is good or you've done really well is not enough. It needs to actually state what has been done well or what needs more work on to improve on. So.
Yeah.
I noticed one of the other people you mentioned was Ron Berger, and I don't know him, so perhaps for me and for others out there, Ron Berger, Vicky, do you want to talk about him?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it's sort of my understanding. This is his book. It's very good. I'm not being paid by Ron Berger in any way. Never even met Ron Berger. But he's an American educator, and he works in schools to do with this concept of expeditionary learning, and that's a whole sort of other area. But one of the big things that he's very big on is good feedback, effective feedback, both from the teacher to the student, from the student to the teacher, but one of the really big things that he does is peer-to-peer feedback, so how students can feedback towards each other. And if you look into his work a little bit, he's got lots of great, really practical examples of how this works and, you know, how it happens in classrooms. It's really good.
And we have the link to Austin's Butterfly.
Yeah, one of those examples.
Berger working in one of his schools that he was doing his work in, and actually shows the theory and practice.
And that's the other QR code in the article.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, there's a chance that some people haven't yet read the article. So if they're seeing this video and they haven't read the article, why should they read the article?
Oh, because it's remarkable.
I think there's practical examples.
Yeah.
I know when I do PD or read professional writings, I like to have something that I can use in my classroom, and I think that our article provides that, a worked example that may be beneficial to teachers and students alike.
Yeah, I agree. I think just like we've seen the benefits in our classroom, so we've seen just, you know, how well the kids can do with this kind of stuff. So I guess we would just like to share that with other people that really can work, really does work.
Terrific. And I know the journal editor told you only had 630 words. So what would you have put in the article if you'd had more space to write? What's something that's not there now that you would have liked to have included?
I would have given more examples. I would have written examples after examples, and Ondine just
So give
cuts
us
them
one of
out.
those now. Give us an example
Well,
now.
I had a little boy this year who brought his, took his art folio home, unbeknownst to me actually, but took his art folio home and gave it to his sister to take to school, and she asked her Year 8 art teacher to give him some notes on it so that he could improve it. I had a little boy who brought me his novel, which he wrote, and he wanted me to read because he wanted me to write notes on it. And that was the stuff that I found really inspiring, because I just loved the fact that they cared about what we thought about their work, you know, they wanted to make it better.
I would agree. I think that was the main section that we edited back and cut back on, which was a lot of the hands-on examples of what the students had been doing to further their learning. So I would definitely have...
and an example from your class is what comes to mind?
Well, I'd say the main examples from my class would have been how the students independently gave feedback. I had a task where they completed some timelines, and in partners they went around and each timeline had a sheet for feedback, and they used the structure that we've talked about in the article to give independent feedback, and I went around and did my own as well. So they didn't need me to stand over and say, you know, make sure your feedback is this, that or the other. They already had the language to do it, and I think that sticks out in my mind that particular day, because it was the students in their own language, so they could understand the feedback from one another, and not needing constant supervision, autonomy at its best, really.